Guillermo del Toro's 2 adaptations received similar love, with a third installment being perhaps one of the most sought-after sequels of all time. Sadly, that project was never to be, but the blow was softened with the announcement that a new Hellboy movie was on the way, this time a full-on reboot with a hard R rating and the grit to do the character justice. And for the first few months of production, the project made all the right moves. Stranger Things' David Harbour was an inspired choice for the titular role, and the first poster showing him in full costume blew just about everybody away. Then the official poster came, and again it looked stunning. Look at those horns, look at that sword. How does anyone have such rock hard abs? They're getting it all right. But as it turns out, they absolutely did not get it all right. At the time of recording, Hellboy is currently sitting on a 9% Rotten Tomatoes score, with plenty of critics already declaring it the worst film of the year. So only one question remains: how did it all go so terribly wrong? I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and this is Hellboy: Why It Failed. Number 6, a clash of creatives. One of the biggest issues, as is often the case with big superhero movies like this, was trouble behind the scenes. Thanks to an exclusive investigation into the film's production from The Wrap, we now know that shooting this picture was just as hellish as the visuals audiences eventually got on screen. A major difficulty seems to have been the war for creative control that was going on behind the camera. Although director Neil Marshall was there all the way through shooting, he wasn't the only one calling the shots, and he allegedly butted heads with producers Lawrence Gordon and Lloyd Levin at every single stage. According to unnamed inside sources, Levin would interrupt Marshall's rehearsals with the actors, undermining his direction and even giving the performers different orders, essentially resulting in a bunch of wildly different characterizations. The conflict between the director and the producers eventually became so toxic that, according to The Wrap's report anyway, it culminated in the producers having Marshall's longtime collaborator and cinematographer Sam McCurdy fired. Though unconfirmed, those close to the set said that the sacking was a power play to let the director know that he wasn't in charge. Number 5, the performances. Obviously, this kind of environment isn't conducive to making a good movie. Hell, The Wrap even reported that these tensions boiled over into the cast, with David Harbour allegedly storming off set after calls for more takes from Marshall. The clash of visions between the producers and the director evidently made its way onto the screen, and can even be seen right back in the very first trailers for the blockbuster. Still, it's unclear who's to blame for the actual performances in the movie. While Harbour is pretty good as the title character, it might just because everyone else around him is really bad. Like, really bad. Look, I genuinely love these actors. Milla Jovovich is always fun to watch, Sasha Lane is incredible in American Honey, and even Daniel Day Kim, though I've seen him in fewer projects than the other two actors, has always been solid. Here though, it's like they were set up to fail. Not only are the lines they're delivering impossible to sell without sounding at least a little bit dumb, they're all delivered in some of the worst British accents I have ever heard. Which is shocking because Neil Marshall is British. He should have known how often weird and unnatural these lines sounded. At least Ian McShane and David Harbour are having some fun, but some of the other actors feel like they're from an entirely different movie altogether. Oh, and there's Stephen Graham's Scouser Scrappy-Doo as well, who is, admittedly, pretty awesome. Number 4, rewrites and an aimless script. Next up is something which happens in a whole bunch of blockbuster movies, although some certainly handle it better than others. Again, according to The Wrap, the script was undergoing significant rewrites while production was already in full swing. Admittedly, the details are a little iffy on this one, as The Wrap sources indicate that pretty much everyone was contributing to the screenplay, including stars David Harbour and Ian McShane, while Martin Singer, Lloyd Levin's attorney, provided a response downplaying the revisions, claiming that only a few scenes were altered and the actors didn't touch the script. How much of the script was crafted on the fly is kind of a moot point anyway, because either way it ended up being bafflingly inconsistent, lacking clarity, and making it confusing to know what characters themselves actually know at any given moment about the plot. So much is crammed into this film that it at once feels far too bloated, yet far too simple. Milla Jovovich's endgame is just be evil, and that's it. And Hellboy himself kind of has an arc, with him wondering about whether or not humans should be killing monsters and dealing with his heritage, but it comes out of nowhere, and the conflict inside him literally lasts about 5 minutes. That's kind of a problem with the script in general. There doesn't seem to be any long-term plan or long-term goals, just isolated scenes that don't sustain drama for more than 5 minutes. Factions are introduced and then killed off before you get a chance to actually know about them or care about them, while moments of peril are solved within seconds. Without spoiling anything, there's a point towards the end where a character is mortally wounded, and Hellboy needs to race against the clock to save them. It's set up as the personal stakes for the final act. Now, admittedly, at this point I nipped out for a quick toilet break, but genuinely I was not gone for more than 2 minutes, and when I came back, this moment of peril had been solved, with a new character introduced while I was gone. This was in the final third of the film. I think this problem with the script has to do with how the filmmakers handled the source material though. So many volumes of the comics are squashed into this film, and while it pays lip service to them all, it means none get the focus they deserve. Number 3, the humor is bad. The script rewrites also led into a problem with the final reel that might have hindered the project even without the production issues. It's painfully unfunny, and that's coming from me, the 10th funniest man on WhatCulture.com. There are some jokes that land, and an always great delivery from David Harbour sometimes manages to make you laugh even when the material doesn't quite deserve it. But there's so many one-liners packed into this thing again that undercut any tension. Hellboy's wacky sidekicks are particularly bad for this, always cracking these terrible jokes in these baffling British accents that I know I keep going on about, but I genuinely can't fathom why they were told to do them. And then there's the meta humor, which is half-heartedly thrown in just because, well, because Deadpool did it and Deadpool's popular right now, isn't it? This is the kind of film that thinks just swearing is funny, and it honestly made me appreciate all the films that inspired it, like Deadpool, which managed to do this brand of comedy so much better. Number 2, the editing is shocking. The film's edit is also a major reason why the film has face-planted so bloody hard. Like Suicide Squad, the film just goes right from moment one, bombarding you with exposition, characters, and world building in such an uninspired way. Obviously, all to the tune of the best indie rock tracks 2011 had to offer. Again, it's just one of those films that's practically a music video. The opening prologue in particular makes a terrible first impression, delivered like one of those fake trailers for movies within movies. For a second, I honestly thought that's where they were going with the intro. The film just never stops to breathe, jumping around at a breakneck speed, introducing key players, but never giving you a reason to care for them or understand who they are. And it's frustrating because when the movie does get the chance to slow down and actually let its characters and scenes breathe, it shows real flair and highlights the potential of what could have been, particularly one really strong sequence set in an alternate dimension. Unsurprisingly, this might also be the fault of the struggles between the directors and the producers. The Wrap reports that Neil Marshall, after finishing the movie to meet his vision the best he could, delivered a cut of the picture to the studios, which, obviously, the producers threw straight in the bin. In response to this, Singer again pointed out that Marshall wasn't promised final cut on the film, which, admittedly, a lot of directors do not get on major studio pictures. But that excuse doesn't exactly smash the narrative that the director's vision for Hellboy was constantly at odds with another, which eventually came out on top. The Wrap reports that even little things like the design of a tree that recurs throughout the movie became a source of contention between these two parties. Allegedly, Marshall wanted something a little more realistic, asymmetrical and normal, which Levin then changed to something more surreal and symmetrical. But then, in post-production, Marshall changed it back once more. The fact that the design of a tree became this war of attrition is indicative of just how broken the creative process was, and why a lot of the more promising features that did make it into Hellboy feel compromised and unexplored and haphazard. Number 1, even the action and CGI don't hold up. Again, these production wars could explain the surprisingly poor action and the shoddy CGI. As I've been saying, there are flashes of some inspired superhero bouts in here, with a fight against a group of giants being a particular highlight. Here the camera is purposeful and energetic and kind of unique. It actually feels like a set piece that had been planned out, storyboarded and prepared for maximum impact. Unfortunately, this is an anomaly, and the good majority of the action comes across like it was handed off to the second unit, choppily edited together with poor effects work that muddles the flow of the battles and at times even makes them difficult to follow. And yeah, the CGI is kinda terrible as well. One really egregious emotional moment right at the end is hampered by this The Rock as the Scorpion King-esque render of one of the characters. It's frustrating because there's some really great physical prosthetics work in there. Hellboy himself looks awesome and some of the monster designs are so well realized. It's just when these real animatronics and the makeup gives way to the CGI, which sometimes even looks a little unfinished. And that's the most annoying thing about Hellboy. There are brief flashes where you can see the film that it could have been. And while executive meddling no doubt didn't help the end result, I don't know if it would have been a great film had Marshall had full creative control. There just seems to be so many issues at the core of it. Even with all this in mind though, it's impossible for me to hate a film where a dismembered Mila Jovovich and a scouse, muscly pig voiced by Stephen Graham watch Love Island on the telly. A film where Big Mo from EastEnders, a show I haven't even watched, uses an SMG from behind a chippy. A film where Ian McShane is simultaneously having the best and worst time of his life. It's a complete and utter train wreck, but it's unlike anything else you will see this year. Either way though, I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. Have the movie's failings been blown out of proportions, or were the critics spot on? While you're down there, could you give us a like, share, subscribe, and head over to whatculture.com for more lists and news like this every single day. Even if you don't though, I've been Josh, thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.